Welcome back to the show. Check out these headlines. We got a new digital asset treasury adding XRP, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to want it. And can the world unite on crypto? Because we can't move forward unless it does. We're going to take a look at it. Ripple, the next phase of adoption. I think you're going to love it. XRP's up 5% in the last 24 hours. What's going on? Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back. Yeah, if you're old enough, you know enough. That's what it is. You can follow us on X, YouTube, and digperspectives.com for exclusive content. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. $3.25 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is up 4.8%, and everything is essentially green, right? I mean, the 1 hour, let's not focus on that, but the 24-hour and the 7-day, everything in the top five is green. I love seeing it for all of us. Bitcoin, 93,000 plus right now, and it's nice to see it back over 93. It was over under in the 80 range, right? So here we are, 3,100 for Ethereum, making a big move, 7.1% in the last 24. XRP made a 5% move, 219 at the number 4 spot, and we're up 1.7 on the 7-day. Looking at the range of price between 209 and 221, we're at the top side of the range. I like it. We will look at some TA before we get out of here. I do want to remind all of you, whether you've been in this space for a long time or not, it is iTrustCapital that provides the kind of comfort that you're looking for. Listen, if you're a day trader, the PCA is not for you. This is a long-term investor account, and it's specifically designed to bring the kind of security and peace of mind while still giving you the same access to the market that you'd have if you were in your IRA. The freedom is that you can bring your crypto or cash in to the PCA, and because it's a closed loop system, you can only cash out to US dollars to your US checking account. Very simple. Why is that? Because if we as individuals were to make a mistake and click on a phishing link, give someone private information that we should not be talking to or sharing with, this can only happen in one way in this account. Well, then the worst thing that could happen because you made a mistake is you get cashed out and it goes to your US checking account. See, in another scenario, it could be taken off of the exchange, and then that crypto, once it goes to another exchange, it's usually split up, sold, flipped into other cryptos, and good luck. But you don't have that here. And that's why I talk about it. And that's why my strategy is to keep my assets in multiple places first. And this right here is one of the most trusted places that I use every single day. You're going to get the kind of comfort you deserve. That kind of comfort. Start getting the peace of mind you deserve. Click the link underneath any video, itrustcapital.com/go/XRP Army, and start getting that peace of mind you deserve. Let's take a look at this and start right here. Japan cuts crypto tax from 55% to 20%. This is starting with the 2026 tax reform. Japan will implement a flat 20% tax on cryptocurrency gains, down from the current progressive rate of up to 55%. Key changes: flat 20% tax, 15% national plus 5% local. Same as stocks and mainstream investments, so that's on par there. Loss carry forward, deduct losses or carry them forward against future gains. Reclassification, bringing crypto under the Financial Instruments and Exchange Act, adds legitimacy and aligns it with other regulated investments. This move provides clear rules and wider acceptance of digital assets, signaling growing recognition of Bitcoin crypto in Japan. And I love seeing that as well. And we're going to tie all of this in a second. Now, here's some speculation from Yoto. Yoto here is an unknown account, and they claim to have knowledge, but I think this stuff is meaningful, but we have to understand it's also speculative. Japan, they say, is preparing to announce new regulations that will directly impact Ripple Prime and Ripple Custody, enabling both companies to fully comply with Japan's digital asset regulatory framework. This represents a significant advancement for Ripple in Japan, one of the world's most advanced financial markets. It's also very, very tied to the US Treasury market because they hold so much US Treasuries, right? So there is a very, very deep connection to Japan there. And we know that Japan experiences the very tough time stabilizing the yen and the interest rates over there. Now, looking forward to those Japanese regulations that were highlighted by Yoto, Mr. Mann says they'll allow for Ripple Prime to seamlessly move value through Japanese regulated pipes utilizing SBI, Real USD, and XRP across jurisdictions such as Vietnam, Singapore, Cambodia, and Thailand. He says, send it. Again, this is speculative, but you know what? SBI is a seed investor in Ripple. SBI is the largest bank in Japan. This, to me, is something we should certainly be watching to see if it matures, right? If this goes beyond speculation. One thing we do know is why I started with the tax structure changing for Japan as a highlight that Japan is doing things when it comes to regulation. So understanding that there could be more favorable regulations about use of digital assets really points to Ripple Prime and the connection with SBI. We'll wait to see more. But nonetheless, we do have this, and there's no speculation in this. Shout out to Bank XRP, baby. Yeah, we'll get to see him at XRP Las Vegas 2026. Did you get your tickets yet? You better get your tickets. I'm telling you. Oh my goodness, we got so much coming together for you. You're going to love it. Bank XRP says a listed Japanese company putting XRP directly into its treasury plan, although it doesn't say how much at the moment. We'll find that out soon enough, I'm sure. But XRP is officially now part of Alt Plus's corporate strategy. Their new shareholder filing confirms the company will buy and hold XRP alongside Bitcoin as a strategic asset for long-term value diversification and staking-based income. There you have it right there. Alt Plus joins the list of other corporates. Come on in, I say. And here we have this breaking: the UK law now officially recognizes digital assets as property. This is interesting. The UK today has taken an important step forward in recognizing the role of digital assets in the modern economy. A new law has come into effect confirming that qualifying digital assets, including uh, crypto tokens and stablecoins and NFTs, can be treated as property under the UK law. I don't need to read the rest to you. Now, look, we saw Japan changing the tax structure, right? G20 nation, UK, G20 nation, crypto's property, right? Getting some clarity, getting some what? What are we getting here, ladies and gentlemen? I think Brad Garlinghouse says it's a global consensus that we still need. And it sounds like to me, he's exactly right. And it sounds like to me what I just shared with you proves that we're getting it. Take a listen to Brad's clip.
Tom, if I may, I think you're demonstrating that we don't have a global consensus about crypto. Even in this conversation, and I agree that it still is early, partly because there is not a global consensus about some of these things. I agree. And I think some of the use cases, we're still extremely early in terms of scaled use cases. Circle is certainly one example that has started to have a scaled use case around a stablecoin. But I think the crypto industry, I agree, the next 16 years, I think will be better than the last 16 years because you'll finally see applications emerging that up until now have just been the store of value story or speculation.
Well, I tell you what, look at that smirk he just dropped on him there. Huh? Yeah. 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 And then he drops the look on the rest of the room. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? The store of value story. Okay. It's still speculation. But it does seem like we are getting that global consensus, though, right? It does seem like that. Japan, UK, again, these are G20 nations that we're talking about that are doing these things moving forward. And by the way, another G20 nation, the United States of America, is working on getting that market infrastructure bill sorted out. So there is global consensus being arrived at, I believed, in real time right in front of us. And meanwhile, to highlight again what BlackRock CEO Larry Fink and Rob Goldstein said, tokenization is entering in the early internet phase, which means adoption. And they say, by the way, over $11 trillion in assets under management, BlackRock, Larry Fink. They say with the potential to transform markets far faster than most expect. That's the power of tokenization. Well, then Bank of America opens the door to crypto and Bitcoin ETFs. Advisors will be able to recommend up to 4% in digital assets in their portfolios. And then we saw Vanguard. Shout out to Cowboy Crypto. Give them a follow. Vanguard will allow ETFs after years and years and years of saying they wouldn't even touch it. Now they're saying they allow ETFs and mutual funds to primary hold select cryptocurrencies, including XRP and other assets, to be eligible for trading on its platform. And we all remember this diagram if you've been in this space long enough. Vanguard right in the middle. Yeah, massive power broker in this world, as we know. BlackRock right there. Look at the connections just that stem out here. And think about all of this is tied into Accenture, CME Group, Temenos, PNC Bank, HSBC. They're all tied back into Ripple at the end of the day. That's why there's a Ripple icon attached to everything. That's what we're looking at here. And now that Vanguard's in, it is another step to getting that bridge built from traditional finance to the new digital on-chain economy. And I believe personally, and I can't prove it at this point, much larger than what we already talk about every day, that Ripple and XRP will play a major role in it. And one of the reasons I feel that way is because we know Open Eden has secured fresh backing from major institutions like Ripple to scale tokenized U.S. treasuries. Is there any bigger market than $38 trillion worth of U.S. treasury debt to be tokenized? That's what we're talking about. Well, they started here with 185 million tokenized U.S. Treasury offerings from Ondo Finance, which is different than Open Eden. They're both doing it, and they're both working with the XRP ledger to get it done. Here is Nathan Allman from Ondo Finance, and he probably isn't, but I can't help but wonder if he's related to the Allman brothers. But nonetheless, I can't help a musician. Let's take a listen to this clip here where he talks about tokenization explained by Ondo Finance CEO.
Yeah.
Why do we need to tokenize assets?
Yeah, those in emerging markets who might not have great access to financial products and services today. So for them, tokenization is just a very simple access play. So much in the way that stablecoins have driven access to the dollar for folks in Latin America and Turkey and Southeast Asia and so on.
Sure.
Our tokenized stocks in our Ondo Global Markets platform, which launched just 6 weeks ago, they're driving accessibility to stocks, bonds, and ETFs. The other is around the use of tokenized securities in DeFi. DeFi has certain advantages over traditional finance from an infrastructure perspective. And as a result, each of these BDs, each of these platforms is able to charge a lot of hidden fees, if you will. Like margin rates are pretty crazy for retail in the US. And there just isn't as much competition as there would be in a more open, composable environment like what we see in DeFi. So we're only at the early innings of doing this, but once we have DeFi with a bunch of tokenized stocks in it, I think that's going to open the door to cheaper, better financial services for even folks in the US.
And then what do you think people do when they know they have a cheaper, better financial service offering for things that they want to buy on the regular? You know how this goes, right? We've seen what happens with the onset of innovation that unlocks a lot of this friction and fees that he's talking about. People are absolutely going to choose to move towards a simpler, more efficient, cost-efficient process. It's just basic math, right? It's just simple. It's simple. Then I tell you, I can't get this out of my head. Shout out to Ali G the First. Give them a follow. When you think about it, we've always heard that the way to get liquidity generated onto the XRP ledger is to start with the smaller, more illiquid corridors, like the Thai baht dollar versus Mexican peso corridor. Not a lot of activity between those corridors. So XRP could serve in a very efficient role there because there's not always enough liquidity just between those $2 in that market. But then you have to think about what is it that Ripple's been doing? Well, they purchased Medico and Standard Custody for regulated digital asset storage. Then they purchased Fortress Trust for licensing and got a bunch of licenses there. Triango for global payouts. It bought Rail Financial for banking and stablecoin rails, which does 10% of all business to business stablecoin payments. Then they purchased G Treasury for corporate treasuries for $1.25 billion that does $12.5 trillion in clearing and settlement every year. Then they bought Hidden Road for institutional liquidity, which settles $3 trillion a year. Then they bought Palisade for enterprise wallet solution for their institutional clients. You have to ask yourself, why would a company build all of this infrastructure if the plan was to keep running tiny private little corridors? Why acquire prime brokers and treasury systems and custodians and global payout networks if not to prepare for something much bigger? Why build the open market stack unless the open market is the next phase? That's where we're at. Yeah. Happy Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we're at. And that, I believe, reveals what Ripple is truly setting the stage for. Massive global adoption in massive, deep, liquid rails. That's what I see happening here, ladies and gentlemen. And I couldn't be more excited to watch it to come to fruition. But I think we all realize if it's going to come to fruition, we're going to need that market infrastructure bill passed. Call your congressman, call your senator to be exact. One call is equal to 10,000 constituents to any congressman or senator. So one phone call equals 10,000 people in their eyes. That's how they see it in scale. So 20 calls, right? You get it. 200,000 people. So let's all make a call to our senator and demand that they, politely and professionally with etiquette, demand that they pass the market infrastructure bill. And if you don't have a problem with it, I'd add in to help protect the US dollar dominance, because that's really where this starts and ends, to be perfectly honest. If we don't get that done, we don't have anything to talk about. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. It's just my digital perspectives. I'll catch all of you on the next one.